It's release weekend for Sweet Baby Inc.'s big brand new game, Flintlock, The Siege of Dawn, and they've been trying to market this heavily. Plus, the mainstream media has also said it's a game that deserves an audience because of how fantastic it is. But now we see the weekend player numbers on Steam, and it is a complete and utter disaster. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, whenever Sweet Baby Inc.'s name is attached to something, we basically know it is going to be a flop. Whether the gameplay itself is bad, the character designs are awful, and there's just generally DEI content shoved into it, or on the flip side, there's people who will not even give these games a chance because they are boycotting Sweet Baby Inc. titles. Look at DEI Detected. There are over 400,000 gamers who have followed that Steam curator list simply to be educated on the fact that Sweet Baby Inc. is affiliated with certain games, and it is a list that you could take and you could buy all the titles off of if you really want to support them, or it also could be just a general boycott list, which is also perfectly fine. But we know Flintlock The Siege of Dawn is their big brand new release, and they probably expected this to do extremely well. We just got done Shadow of the Erdtree, of course, a couple of weeks ago. It launched, a lot of people played through it, and they're kind of itching for a Souls experience, and they were marketing this game heavily as a souls-lite. Now, of course, it's not quite the same because it takes the general features like bonfires and flasks, but it doesn't have that difficulty, and I think that's really what people want right now. People want Souls experiences, not really Souls-lights. When I hear Souls-lite, I instantly think of Journo Souls because, well, they always complain about Souls difficulty, and this is basically just the same thing, only dumbed down and much easier, but they marketed it that way heavily, of course, right after Shadow of the Erdtree, so I think they probably expected this to gain a lot of attention, and unfortunately for them, it doesn't seem to be going well. Now, of course, I think it's important to note that before we get into these numbers, this game is on Game Pass, which I do think probably is drawing in a couple thousand people, right? Because if you pay for the service, you can just go in and download it for free. I know that when I'm uploading this video tomorrow, I'm actually going to be streaming Flintlock Siege of Dawn because I'm talking about it. I'm going to at least stream it. And I'm going to be downloading it off of Game Pass. Simple as that. I don't want to directly give them money. Now, of course, we know that developers don't really make money off of Game Pass. They have said this for years at this point. It's basically just a platform for exposure. Yes, they do make some money off of it, but not as much as if you went and actually bought this full-priced game. But yeah, it doesn't really look like many people at all actually are playing this because right now, a Saturday afternoon on release weekend, you would think that this would be kind of the height of the player numbers. Now, of course, it is still earlier in the day, but at the same time, you would expect it to be doing much better than this because it's currently sitting at 509 people playing right now. Absolutely hilariously ridiculous. Judging by these numbers, if you look at the 509 people playing, that means that they've only made roughly $20,000. And of course, I'm not sitting here saying that $20,000 is absolutely nothing, but we're talking about a game that at least had a couple $1 million budget. We don't exactly know, but games are not that cheap to make, and it just seems like this all around is a massive failure for them. I mean, even on Thursday, it had 648 people playing, and I thought it was really bizarre that it launched on a Thursday morning because unless you're a large company like a From Software, it seems bad to launch on a Thursday morning, but more people were playing it then than they even are right now on a Saturday, which is just so freaking funny to me. Now, of course, there are plenty of people talking about this on social media, from the individuals who are boycotting it because of Sweet Baby Inc.'s affiliation to a few individuals who are saying this is actually a pretty good game, which, fair enough. If you're enjoying it, that is awesome. I want games to come out and for people to enjoy them. I just know from what I've seen so far, it looks terrible. There's a lot of DEI bullshit shoved into it, and we know Sweet Baby Inc. hates us. They think that gamers are ists and phobes and disgusting human beings, and that to me is just awful. It makes me not want to support them, which is why I talk so much about them on the channel and try to educate you guys on the products that they're affiliated with. But of course, Xbox Game Pass, the official X account, had tweeted about this, made a post about it, and Flintlock Siege of Dawn is trying to garner up some attention, but they were saying feels like a pretty useful item for your inventory, and it says increases your ability to play 100%. This game is available with Xbox Game Pass, just simply trying to promote it, and people in the comments are roasting them, saying things like, not really fun, sorry. I hate this game, it sucks. Looks terrible even for a free one. Nobody cares. And of course, there are some people saying things like, this is great, and there's so many new games this week, too many to play at the same time. But those comments are really few and far between. Plus, if you start actually searching Flintlock the Siege of Dawn on X, there are people absolutely destroying them. Of course, we know that even the critics did not give this game super high scores. Mark Kern had posted, Sweet Baby Inc. kills another game. I covered this from an insider who reported how SBI's involvement ruined Flintlock the Siege of Dawn. And of course, this could be the case, but you have to keep in mind that these developers, this team, hired Sweet Baby Inc. So, they are really just as bad as Sweet Baby Inc. They could have simply pushed all their suggestions to the side and ignore what they said, but companies don't generally pay another company and group of people to do work and then not listen to them. And we actually saw a developer on this team reach out to Cabrutus, and he said that there was no Sweet Baby Inc. content that made it into the final cut of the game, but when Cabrutus asked for some kind of proof or some kind of confirmation, they went silent. They didn't end up responding. It seemed that at that point, when they were asked for clarification and again proof, they just kind of decided, oh, we got ourselves into this situation and now we're just going to ignore it. But of course, the internet never forgets. I'm sitting here talking about it months after the fact, and I will continue to do so. There's also people saying things like, I guess the modern audiences didn't come out of the shadows and buy the latest Sweet Baby Inc. disaster, Flintlock Siege of Dawn. Well, that's actually not true. They did show up to buy this game, but only 509 people make up the modern audience that these companies are really trying to get to buy their products. Maybe companies will now start to realize that this fabled modern audience they constantly talk about doesn't really exist because they marketed this game heavily. The media was shilling for this game weeks and even months leading up to release, and all they could garner was a measly 509 people on a Saturday, or the all-time peak on a Thursday. They got 648 people. I mean, I guess the modern audience does exist, and there's only about 700 of them, maybe 1,000 if we're generous. There's also tons of memes being spread around, so Sweet Baby Inc.'s next masterpiece, Flintlock, just got released, and the initial players entering the game didn't even reach 500. Yeah, I mean, the numbers are, again, a little bit higher now for the all-time peak, but we're still talking about puny and measly numbers here. We're still not talking about, 5 or 10,000 people. RPG Site had said, although Flintlock has satisfying combat, this entry-level Souls-like RPG is held back by some bland questing and a forgettable narrative. I love Souls-like games, and I am always looking for new Souls experiences, but when it's said that it's an entry-level Souls-like, that is an instant turnoff to me. It really just seems like they made this game for journos. They shoved as much DEI nonsense into it as they could. They went in having, it sounds like, a decent combat idea, but a poor execution because it's an entry-level Souls. And now we're also hearing that the questing is bad and it's got a forgettable narrative. Again, I will be streaming it simply because I've talked about it so much. I only think that it's fair to have my own opinion formed on it. I will play it, I will give it a shot, and I'm going to stream it. So if you are interested in seeing this potential disaster and my initial thoughts, I will be streaming it, so make sure to keep an eye out for that. But so far, things are not going good for Sweet Baby Inc.'s recent release of Flintlock Siege of Dawn. I will, of course, be keeping my eye on these player numbers. Maybe they'll magically shoot up, maybe they'll magically get better over release weekend, but I highly doubt it. But that's all that I had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.